Welcome, racers and fans, to the Racers News Network Live, presented by Straight Line Performance and Automotive and Scotty Wheels Racing. Your hosts, Chris and Pete, bring you the latest news and interviews in the world of sportsman drag racing, including bracket racing, association races, outlaw, and no-time events. We are live every Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Take it away, boys. Boys.
Little glitch. That's all right. It's all fun and games till somebody gets shot in the leg, and then depending on who it is, it's just fun. All right. Well, welcome to Racers News Network, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, checking us out. Joining us as usual is my friend Pete Sanka up in the top left. Down on the bottom right, getting his butt kicked by his wife, is Scotty McDonald, owner of Scotty Wheels Racing. And our guest for this evening from NHRA, the director of the contingency program that everybody's been talking so much about lately. And we have him on to answer some questions. Please welcome David McDonald.
No.
Scott McDonald, David Kennedy.
Scott McDonald, David Kennedy.
Oh, did I say? All right, David Kennedy.
Oh, it's a good last name. I got
my merge mixed.
It's a pleasure to be
all
here.
Good.
Let me join
it's
you.
All good. All right. So, again, welcome David Kennedy from NHRA. You and I had an awesome conversation. Like you said, it felt like about a month ago, but it was only a few weeks ago. There's been a lot of talk on the random message boards out there in the universe about the contingency program. Not all good, not all bad. So we thought we created a poll, actually, is what we started with.
Mm-hmm.
Of what people were thinking to get an idea of where people's heads were at.
Sure.
And in a matter of about 24 hours, that poll from out here on the East Coast crept its way over to California. And you and I made contact, and like I said, we had about an hour or so conversation, and we decided to go after it and get the answers for the racers. And as you know, these guys are racers as well. Pete races NHRA, Scott races outlaw, no time, no prep, stuff like that, radial tire stuff. But let's talk the contingency program.
Sure.
First of all, how did you get involved in NHRA?
So I'm a kid from Massachusetts that didn't grow up in a car family, but was fascinated by cars, read car magazines my whole life, and went to school, got a degree in journalism, and came out to California about 20 years ago to write for a Peterson title. In this case, it was about off-road and four-wheel drive vehicles, because I grew up in New England where you needed four-wheel drive to get out of the snow, as you guys are experiencing potentially right now. And now that I'm living in Los Angeles, you're seeing a sunny day behind me. So here we are. I got to NHRA after working through various car magazines and doing a stint as Hot Rod Magazine's editor. Following Wally Park's footsteps, I left Hot Rod and came to NHRA in May of 2016. My primary job is working with National Dragster, NHRA.com. Worked with television, worked with social media here. And then a couple of years ago, I got involved with the contingency program, primarily because I was a car guy, and these were companies and brands that I was familiar with and wanted to see how contingency worked, see how this program really was a grassroots campaign to help drag racers and help companies kind of get together.
So I kind of want to do it how you and I spoke. Why
Sure.
don't we start right at square one, and let's work through the contingency program,
Sure.
how it started, what the original intent and the continuing intent of the program is, and how it affects the racer.
Sure. Well, from my perspective, this is not NHRA's contingency program is not a profit center for NHRA, but it is a success center for NHRA. The motivation is to connect racers that win with companies that make parts, and NHRA can validate and certify that that experience happened, that decals and manufacturer's presence were captured, and then pass that information on. Now, we don't benefit other than the primary goal. Our goal is to see people make more drag strip passes, is to see more companies see this as a marketplace for them and their parts. And if we can connect those two successfully, both of those groups will reward us, like I said, with more drag strip passes. The success for us is more drag strip passes, more drag racers, a more vibrant community. I look at this program as when it's successful, it's connecting those things. I see when it's not successful is when there's frustration or not clarity, and it's not facilitating more drag racing to happen. Scott, excuse me, Chris, we got talking because I saw on your group another racer. Mentioned it to me. Said, check this out. And there were racers that were having a problem, and there were racers that talking to other racers about it. And I said, well, bring me into the conversation because my job is to help remove these roadblocks. But I can understand when you get frustrated, many times it's because you don't know who to talk to or that person cares as much as you do. And my hope was to give a shortcut to your audience and to all racers to say, if you have an issue, and there are people like me that want to hear, and it's our job to help. I just don't want the frustration to continue any longer than it has to. So come right to me and give me a shot to fix it.
Right, because now speaking on a random web board or Facebook page or whatever, pretty much accomplishes nothing. We are so much better off just to go to find out who the source is, and go to that person and say, hey, look, I'm having a problem with company ABC. What can you do to help me out? Is that correct?
And even through an NHRA, the idea of this is my concern, like anything. I think Warren Johnson told me you can't solve a problem that you don't can't clearly define. If you don't know what the challenge is, maybe I'm not the right guy to solve the problem. But if it's a contingency, if I don't know the answer, I can at least get us going in the right direction. Again, I'm the shortcut to that almost every time. But then again, you and I talked. This was a particularly challenging year, so areas of frustration and weakness were going to come out this year for us. And again, audience and racers not knowing or maybe having good experience in the past, I expected and deserved a good experience now. Again, I wanted to help connect and get them and their problem solved as quick as possible.
Before we really dive into the whole program itself, since you and I talked and I shared, you told me, please share my email.
Sure.
I want racers to contact me. Have you noticed an increase in people reaching out to you to try and resolve stuff?
Potentially, and I appreciate it. Again, the opportunity, I want to make sure we get in front of as many people as possible. The NHRA Contingency Program, which operates on almost 75 events throughout the calendar year, every one of the outbound communications goes out with my email address on it. So I get a lot of emails. The idea of where they come from, in general, they're pretty much connected: racer, race, class, finishing position, and me. So it's not always obvious, but again, if we reach 2 more people and got them 2 days quicker to resolve, then it was a great success. And I'm hoping other racers watching this will know dkennedy@nhra.com, my cell phone number, whatever they need to know to get through, get the answers and the help that they need to get this year. And also to feel confidence going into 2021 that we've taken the lessons learned this year and we won't go down those same paths this next year.
Is it fair to say 2020 was that piece of paper that you just want to ball up and scrunch it and just throw it in the trash can and say that never existed in our eyes?
Well, I think, for me, Jim Campbell from General Motors, motorsports marketing guy, pointed out, again, not a direct conversation, but I'll quote him. He said, COVID-19 taught us to do a lot of the things that we knew we were going to have to do. It just put us on an accelerated pace. We knew we had to do them. COVID-19 basically gave us that stress test to do them today and to do them with less people than we intended to do them with. So for us, I think 2020 was very tough, but it also taught us a lot. And I don't want to trash it because, again, the learning that comes with it, but I definitely don't want to repeat it. I want to make new mistakes going forward. And I think that the idea of keeping this an easy process, again, communicating more of this so people realize, hey, they want the same thing I want. That's only going to benefit us. And I'm going to hear from a racer after this that's going to have an idea that, I'm going to apply, or NHRA is going to be listening and again, make this better for everybody in the years to go.
All right, let's get into it. Let's start, like I said, right at square one. Oh, go ahead, Pete. Sorry, go ahead, Peter.
Well, it was more or less starting at square one, like you planned on doing.
Sure.
Just kind of setting the stage. Someone's win light just turned on. I say someone because I forget what it looks like, but someone's win light just turns on. They're in the winner's circle or runner up. Fill out the contingency form. Someone at the local track checks to make sure you have all the stickers on the car. And then we never see the piece of paper again. Tell us what happens from that point on, if you don't mind.
Sure, and I appreciate that. So, yep, you're right. You come to eliminations, you make it to the final round, you're the winner or the runner-up, and you're going to come down and get an inspection, a contingency inspection at some point. And it might be in the winner's circle, it might be back at the tech trailer. It's going to happen at some point at that race. A tech inspector is going to take a sheet that is made here in Glendora, that's printed out, and it's going to have a series of boxes on it. It's going to look like, without sharing anybody's in particular, it's going to have your personal contact information at the top, and then it's going to have a series of boxes. You're going to see you're going to see product categories listed.
I recognize that. It's been a while, but yeah.
Well, we look forward to having you back.
I appreciate that.
You're going to see in an alphabetical order of product category. At the top, it's going to be air filter, then axles, and kind of go down. Yep. You're going to see the companies listed that are posting, meaning that they are, committing to pay you for your win or your runner-up in that category. And then you're going to see these boxes over here that are checked off. Now, as a racer, your responsibility is threefold. You're going to win or runner-up. You're going to have the product on the car. You're going to have the decal representing that product on both sides of the car. You do those things. When we hand you this piece of paper, you're going to fill out your personal information at the top. Please mark down it in completion, because every piece of data you give us, your member number, your car number, your home address, cell phone, all that's going to make it easier as we enter it here in the system. And then you're going to claim all the products that you have. Now, please don't claim a product that you don't have and don't have the decal for. If you make claims that you think are okay, again, make a claim. You have the product, you got the decal. You got the decal on both sides. You make that claim in this area. NHRA's representative is going to come over after you fill it out, and they're going to say, do you have a claim K&N air filter? Do you have the air filter? And you're going to see a column that says D. That's the decal column. Or to confirm you have the decal. You're going to see another column for P. That's the product column. We're going to confirm you have the product. And not every product is something that's verifiable in a winner's circle at a racetrack by a person with a clipboard. Valve springs are going to be on this list, but we're not going to ask you to pull the valve covers. We're not going to ask you to pull a piston to take a look at that either. So in that case, you're going to see there won't be a P box. There'll only be a D box. Every product requires you to get the decal confirmed. Even if you're sponsored by Summit and you have Summit on the door, like a Pro Stock car, there's still going to be a Summit decal, a contingency size decal on that car as well. NHRA will confirm all those. In this case, we're looking at a pretty solid confirmation. We're seeing everything claimed, has a decal and product verified, and going right down the list. This sheet, which depending on the race and the class, could be 3 pages long.
Now, could I just interrupt you for 1 second?
Absolutely.
You have different companies that pay contingencies, different divisions, different categories, different races. So it's not just a generic sheet that you send out to everyone. It's all itemized and very division and race and class specific, correct?
Correct. And the flexibility the system was designed around allows for a company to host or promise to pay racers in various types of classes. And in some situations, you might pay the Lucas Oil Divisional Race Series level. And you may also pay at the national event sportsman level. You might do one or the other. There have been in the past where you'll pay for a cocktail of events that make sense to you and for what your marketing goals are as a manufacturer. I try to encourage manufacturers to post everywhere consistently. So if you're posting for Top Sportsman, you're kind of posting for it across the board. There are some companies whose goals that doesn't always fit, but just to make it easier, more transparent for the racer. Now, we would post those scenarios. We would list who's paying for what on NHRAracer.com. There's an Excel sheet that you click to that will give you the posting matrix. It's a very complete Excel sheet, but it's not always the most user-friendly. So I'm working on getting that to improve. Again, I think in this situation, it becomes very clear who's posting for what in which class. And I think that's a service that the racer, again, feedback from conversations like this, I found would be very helpful to the racer. Not the system we have serves us and keeps it all straight. But again, if it's not obvious, that's an area of improvement for me.
Sure. So it would look to me that that actual slip that you send out to each race, to just be able to post that slip so that we know what we're going to be looking at when we're in the winner's circle, that might make life a lot easier for all parties involved.
And I think, and there's no secrets to it. Again, I'm only folding that sheet down because there's probably somebody's personal information at the top that doesn't necessarily want to be part of this potentially. But yes, there's no secrets. That's all information that would be shareable in some other form, but that may be an easier form. And I think the point you're making, and I'm definitely taking this to heart, if you can see it beforehand, the same way you're going to see it in that emotional, exciting moment,
Right.
It's going to be helpful to you too. You're going to do a better job because it won't be the first time you've seen it. And again, you doing a better job means we'll do a better job. We'll do a better job helping you out. Again, I think that's the right way for us to tackle this.
It might also help to keep people a little more honest too.
Well, and I think
beforehand exactly what they have to fill out, and they know that they don't have whatever company's spark plug wires. Well, they know that on spark plug wires, not only are you going to need the decal, but they're going to make you take your hood off and look to see what they are. That might change the way the form is eventually filled out also.
Again, I think you're right. If I want you to succeed, I think I let you start earlier than I might normally let you start. And
Right.
again, in that moment, the end of your race weekend, it's not impossible, but that's probably it's probably the hardest time to learn that sheet is in that moment, especially if it's been a couple of weeks since you've seen it, since the last time you won, right?
Right. Like maybe 2 weeks. Yeah.
Like 2 weeks, 2.5, maybe 2 weeks. Yeah.
All right. So we fill it out. It gets double checked. And then what happens after that?
Now, one of the things that I would ask, you're going to see that sheet and you are going to make your claim, and an NHRA inspector official is going to do the verifications on this side. Please don't fill this out yourself. If you do, it's only going to slow them down as they try to re-verify the verifications you've made. After you get done with the form and you watch the tech inspector verify the decals and the products, we're going to ask you to sign the sheet. The sheet is basically going to be 2 boxes at the bottom of the sheet. On this case, it's the 4th page, but we won't show you, just 2 lines. NHRA official's going to sign and print their name. You're going to sign and print your name. And what that does from our perspective is it allows you an opportunity to say, yep, I've reviewed these findings and these make sense to me, or I agree with them. I've gotten a chance to double check them with the person at the race, because that's the most efficient time for a conversation to happen. Again, I'll use the example, the air filter, Canon decals on the side of the car. You claim the product. The tech inspector verifies the decal, but misses checking off the product. And you say, oh, I see here, product column, you didn't verify the air filter. There's the air filter right there. Got it on the car. Can you mark that off? And they'll say, yes, I see the air filter. If you're not running the air filter and you say, hey, I own the air filter, and then I have it somewhere, the tech inspector can say, look, it's got to be on the car. And then you can have that discussion then when both of you are looking at the vehicle and the piece of paper. And you can come to some resolution there. Now, that's, in my mind, you're going to sign and you're agreeing that what the inspector has found is what you both agreed to. That's the best part. That's the best time to have that conversation. Those sheets, after all of them are collected and the race is over, those sheets are going to at some point that Sunday night leave the track, Monday going to get back to an office, and Tuesday morning in a perfect world are going to be scanned in digitally and then emailed now to California. And they're going to end up in a series of email inboxes. In the past, prior to March 15th of 2020, those sheets were going to be inter-office mailed back to Glendora, and I would literally be holding and touching every one of those pieces of paper. And they're going to be stored here. We have all your contingency paperwork back, probably longer than we'd care to admit, sitting in filing cabinets, organized the way that things were traditionally done. And that program has worked out well until COVID-19 comes, and then we realize we need to get into a virtual world where this type of process can be done without coming to an office and without having those pieces of paper in our hands. Again, it was a good system. It was efficient. We were familiar with it. The system we have now duplicates it, but duplicates in a way that we don't have to hand carry those papers across the country anymore. Now, after that paper, or now in this case, a digital PDF comes back to us. Typically a race, divisional race might be 76 pages of documentation. Hopefully the penmanship is exemplary. The information is complete. All of the verifications and claims are clear. And we take those sheets and enter them into a system here. Now, again, after 2020, that information can be entered anywhere in the world that I have an internet connection. And it gets processed. Now, the minute that sheet is entered and we hit an email button, it emails you or the racer a digital version, not of the PDF scan that they filled out. They won't see their exemplary penmanship, but they will see basically the data entry version of that in real time. So if you get one in the middle of the night, that means somebody in the middle of the night in California was entering that information. If you get it at 6 o'clock in the morning, that means it was at 6 o'clock in the morning. There are ways I can do it in a batch, but in general, that's what that happens. As we do that for every one of those races at a particular event, all gets entered into the system. It goes into a pending process. Now, at this point, when it gets emailed to the racer, it also goes into a database for the manufacturers. And we haven't talked a lot about them, but we'll come back to them in a minute because it's a critical part of contingency. This information is put into a location that manufacturers can log into and look at. At this point, it will say this, it will list the racer's name, it'll list the event code, it'll list their finishing position, and then give the manufacturer an opportunity to click on a link that will allow them to view that digital facsimile or digital copy of the tech sheet. It will say it is in a pending status. And the way the system is intended, that pending status means the data has been entered, the racer has seen it, and it has not yet been confirmed. It has not been finalized. This could be for a number of reasons. And this year we found that the finalizing a sheet might be, is the event code correct? This year with so many race date changes, there were times where an event internally has an event code that was correct, and then schedule changes and rearrangements meant that all of a sudden that event code was incorrect. That gives us, that pending status opportunity gives us a chance to fix some of those things. Again, things that we learned in 2020 that we need to be able to verify and have that moment to make some updates or corrections. It then gets moved on another backend system to be verified. So those claims, and each and every one of those claims. So if on your tech sheet you claim 32 components and we verified 29 of them, all 29 of those things have the opportunity to be looked at again. And after all that's done for every racer, every finishing position at each event, then that event is finalized. And we will now, in 2021, we will then email all of the manufacturers that are participating that race has been finalized. At that point, let's talk about the manufacturer. There's approximately 100 partners that participate on some level with NHRA contingency. A couple of them post in almost every scenario at every level of event for every finishing position. there are a number that post for a handful of scenarios, but each one of those manufacturers then has a login that they go, again, web-based system, and look at, here are the racers that are eligible for payment that NHRA has verified they won or runner up at a race, they had our decal, and if the product was visible, it was verified. And if NHRA is saying it met those three criteria, then that manufacturer has that racer's contact information and address. Typically, if you are new or it's been more than 2 weeks since you won a race, that manufacturer may contact you for a W-9. Now, W-9 is an IRS form that companies need to pay regular people like us. It allows them to have a paper trail to say, I made a payment to this person. So in general, they're going to ask for you to have a W-9 on file. In my experience, it can be every year, every calendar year. So they'll initiate that conversation and then initiate payment. Now, this case, it's important to understand that that money from the manufacturer goes from the manufacturer to the racer. NHRA basically provides the payment scenario or says, hey, this person met that criteria to be paid, but that transaction happens between company and racer. Now in 2020, we found that when we would get behind, we put the whole process behind. And we found that in my conversations with the racers, and there's probably been hundreds of them now, and anybody that's watching that had to go through talking to me on my cell phone in my house, you found out that I like to talk. And I talk and enjoy that conversation for a half an hour. And I'll learn some stuff and you'll hopefully come out with a solution that you needed, but you'll also know, man, that kid likes to talk. We resolve those problems and you move on to the next race. 2 weeks later, we're going through that process again. Let's talk a little bit. So that's kind of the paperwork trail. Again, you fill up, we create a sheet. Some cases it's emailed to a division. Some cases it's printed out locally. That sheet is effectively created here and then printed out locally to where you are the racer. You fill it out to the best of your abilities. You have the conversation, you verify the results. You and the NHRA technical official have a conversation about whatever questions may arise. I have a decal on this side. That's the wrong decal. Here's the product. Let me show you. Here's where the Brodix casting, shows. You're right. I don't have those tires on the car anymore. Those are the types of conversations that are best to have in that situation. They're going to send that sheet off now digitally to us the Tuesday after the race. If there's a rain delay or that race and that class didn't finish at that particular event, which is also something that seemed to happen more than ever before in 2020. You had races finishing in multiple locations. That meant that these sheets were coming in staggered to us. Those sheets come back to Glendora, now get entered, might be in my garage, might be here in the office, at some point gets entered in the system. Racer receives in real time that email with a digital version of that sheet. Manufacturers then get alerted in batches. And this year, that slow process at the front caused delays. That again, I appreciate the patience of racers and manufacturers. All the conversations I've had have ended positively, even though they started out slow and frustrating in some cases.
So it is still up to the manufacturer to log in, see who won, and cut the check to that winner or runner-up.
And we try to make that a communication as simple as possible. You can download an Excel sheet out of this reporting tool. Again, this side is not visible to the racer. This is basically a communication device or a platform between NHRA and the manufacturer. But yes, they're going to see this information. They can click on it, contact information, or they can download, and their accounts payable department will typically take that information. Again, maybe have a conversation, ask for a W-9 or some additional verification. If it's, say, a transmission that requires a secondary certification that you have it or you purchased it, and then they'll send the check to the racer. Now, this is where the exemplary penmanship comes in. If the mailing address is current and correct, again, it works out. The email address is current and correct. Cell phone number current and correct. All those things make it easy to help companies pay you. Now, these 100 companies, again, partners in many cases. This program dates back to 1966. I think Holly and Edelbrock I think Edelbrock is probably one brand that's been here every year since the very first year.
Wow.
So you have a lot of legacy partners that have been doing this for a long time. And then you have some new partners that need to be exposed to this. It's a great grassroots marketing campaign where there's a lot of racer-owned companies that participate in this program. They know you guys, they know the products, they know the winners, and they want to support the industry. There are a lot of companies that look at this and say, we need to prove our parts are as good or better than everybody else's. So this is a great platform to show that in real time. But those companies can participate at various levels. Again, I was showing you earlier before our conversation, I have some documentation here that dates back to, I think the earliest stuff I have is from 1976. And as I showed you, this is a memo from Wally Parks. You can know because that's his WP signature and that's his letterhead here. And that this was written on a typewriter.
That's
and
amazing.
He's asking, and you even see his typo of missed you at today's 2:30 meeting for Gainesville planning. So we know this is after 1970. Memo is coming with pertinent details. In 1996, this information, again, many of the categories of how companies can post are spelled out here in multiple pages. One of the things that hasn't changed is that in general have a tiered approach to posting for contingency. The three categories I'm going to tell you about today are you have a major sponsor, you have a complementary sponsor, and you have a Lucas Oil Divisional Race Series sponsor. There are some small subsets of those, but primarily those are the three categories almost everybody's going to fall into. What this means is if you want to post and tell racers, if you're running my cylinder head, if you're running our cylinder head, you run the product, you have our decals on both sides of your car, you win or runner up, and Nhra confirms this in the race. I, as a manufacturer, can't be at all the races, all 75 of them throughout the course of the year. In some cases, races happening the same weekends at the same times. And Nhra is all those places, so they're going to verify that experience. I, the manufacturer, will pay you at the national events, $300 to win, $100 to runner up. In a divisional race, the same claim would be $100 to win and $50 to runner up. There's some slight variations at other price points, but for all intents and purposes, those are the two payment scenarios that are structured. Now, if a company wants to do all that, we can get a company in for no money up front. It's called a complimentary program. It would allow you to post for your product at all national events, all Camping World Drag Racing Series events, whether it's in Top Sportsman or Pro Stock or Funny Car or Super Street at the events those happen. It costs no money to the manufacturer. We'll put you in the system. We will list in our matrix that our cylinder head company is posting for these scenarios, these car classes. And at the end of that weekend, Nhra will verify the decal and the product was there, pass that claim on to the manufacturer. Again, the $300, $100 money to the racer is the same. No money needed from the Nhra. The category of money, a major sponsor, from the racer's perspective, it stays the same. From the manufacturer's standpoint, one of the things that changes is now for $7,500 a year, you have the ability to display at every national event, all 24 national events and the sports nationals. You get a 20 by 25 foot space on the midway. NHRA wants you to be there because you have cool stuff to show. And we want people to get excited about the hard parts that are making race cars go. It kind of becomes a display. You have the space to do so. As a major sponsor, in addition to that display space, you also get credentials to bring your customers, your employees, your influencers. You want them to come out to a race, whether it's in your backyard or on the other side of the country. This major sponsor level program comes with more than $7,500 worth of tickets. And it also comes with permanent, I don't have mine now, but a hard card that you can come into a race as an employer or of this manufacturer, and allows you entry into any national event. Now, this value of stuff that comes with major sponsorship is worth more than $7,500. In fact, based on my calculation, it's worth more than $17,000. So why does NHRA do
I'm
that?
shocked at that price.
Yeah,
Um,
me
I would have
too.
thought it would have been much more expensive.
Well, my understanding of talking with one of our sponsors that had previously dealt with NASCAR, they said that it is maybe a fourth of what NASCAR once charged for a contingency program.
Wow.
Again, this is not need to be a money-making platform for NHRA. This is a success-making platform. Our interest is to see racers make more passes, more manufacturers seeing this as a marketplace. And again, we would love for you to come out and be able to show these products and wares on the Midway to make that pit an even better show than it is. There's approximately maybe a dozen to 2 dozen companies that are major sponsors for various reasons. Again, Edelbrock, I'll single out as a company that's been there since the beginning. They may or may not display at all events. They may or may not use all those tickets. But it is the type of thing where that legacy has been part of the program. Because you got to remember, this dates back before a SEMA show. This dates back before the internet.
Right.
This dates back before cell phones. So the idea of a long time ago, if you wanted to sell racers parts, the only way any of us could even know what existed was to go to a race and see it on display.
The only marketing tool around back then.
Well, think about it. And it may even be the only way you could get it at one point. There was no. You would buy it in person and carry it back to your trailer or to your car. But still, I think there are times where to see and touch and have a conversation with somebody that makes a product or represents it, it's still very helpful. So again, NHRA wants to encourage and facilitate that conversation.
Now, can they sell with all the way taxes are different state to state? Are they allowed to sell or just display?
No, they can do a transaction. Again, that would come down to if they can sell the products that they're displaying. But again, that onus would fall on those companies. And in many cases, some of those challenges become difficult for them to do.
Yeah.
But again, it is in many cases their customers, think about it, the last time you were at a national event, just to be able to see and discuss, again, using the cylinder head as an analogy, you may not want to walk out of there with cylinder heads. But at least you'll know, okay, that's the finish. That's the porting job I was hoping for. And now I can have a follow-up conversation because I couldn't tell from the pictures, or I couldn't tell based on the conversation of the catalog. But now that I've seen it firsthand, I'm a customer.
Yeah, it becomes tangible. You can actually touch it, see it, hold it. Right.
Yeah. So then this idea of being able to go to all 24 national events, to be able to get the ability to send customers and clients and in many cases employees to races. These are perks, again, things that NHRA knows are good for the racing community. But our real motivation there is we want the manufacturer to be able to pay racers. And we want the racers to win a lot. We want manufacturers to post a lot. We want to help them sell a lot of parts. But we want them to pay a lot of racers that money because, again, we know what you're going to do with that money that you get in a contingency check. You're going to come to another race. You're going to find a way to get another part, build another car. It's just going to help you do what you want to do. It's going to help us all do what we want to do. So that's where it all comes together. So major, you can spend $7,500 up front and you get display space, you get tickets, you get hard cards, you get access to the event Midway. And you pay drag racers for winning and runnering up. Complimentary program is the same, just minus the display space, minus the tickets, minus the hard cards. So price point for both. There are complimentary sponsors that pay out tens of thousands of dollars to racers every year. And that's perfect. There are major sponsors that pay out, hundreds of thousands of dollars in the past, and they're going to know to display, to be part of the conversation. It's going to help them. It's going to help them ratchet up, and if they can get in front of customers, it's all the better for them. Now, the third part that we haven't talked about is this Lucas Oil Divisional Series level sponsor. This is the level if you're getting started in contingency and you have a product and you're a racer in some cases, or you're a local manufacturer and you've been to displaying at a divisional race for $1,000 a year. You can participate at all 44, 45, 43 divisional events. You can pay for all classes or just the classes that apply to your product. You can then display. If you're in Division 2, you can display at all Division 2 events. You can also display at all Division 6 events if you wanted to go to Division 6. But it's for $1,000, and that's at the Lucas Oil Divisional Race Series only. If you want to post in top sportsman in every category, there are many customers, many partners that will post Lucas Oil Divisional Race Series, pay $1,000 for all 44 divisional races. Then we'll add the complimentary national event payout scenario. Again, still only $1,000, but now they're in the, let's say, top sportsman in both scenarios. So a racer that will go national event, divisional event, we see a lot of companies that will participate at that level to get both hits and both exposures. And then I think, again, there are categories that came on, whether it was pro stock motorcycle, whether it was pro mod, factory stock, shootout. There's some scenarios where marketing partners or contingency companies would say, hey, I have a product for motorcycles, but I don't have it for anything else. Can you find something for me? Because I'm not at all 24 events, or I'm not at divisional events. And so there are subsets of these programs, but for all intents and purposes, if you're a racer with a company and you want in, you can participate with an entry contingency for no money down, and the money is going to be between you and the racer. I would encourage new companies coming in to start at the complimentary level, then to move to the Lucas Oil Divisional Race Series level. And then when that is rocking and rolling and you're selling parts, then races are winning, you're going to move up to the major sponsor level. You're going to have a display space. I'm going to be seeing you at national events. I'm going to see you in Indy. I'm going to see you in Gainesville. I'm going to see you succeeding, and I'm going to see cool parts on display at the races.
Could I ask one question?
Absolutely.
Probably be asking more than one if I had to guess, but one for right now. How come you don't have a complimentary for the divisional races?
It's a great question. In many cases at that level, the burdens, the resources available at that many of events are not as significant. The efficiencies at the national events are greater for us, so we can pass that complimentary membership, that complimentary program on. We're going to have a tremendous amount of technical people at a national event versus divisional event. They're going to be there. We need them there. So we're going to have more resource. We're going to have more industry employees at a national event. So we have the ability to absorb a lot of that overhead that just may not exist when a division director and a division tech director, there's just not as much manpower, people power there.
Understood.
One of the things that you mentioned when you and I were talking on the phone, David, was the gentleman with the wheels. The company that he bought the wheels off, paid him above and beyond the value of the wheels. So when they ended up switching products, staying in that class, but switching the product that they paid out on. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So that's a good point. So these payment scenarios, this $100 to win, $50 to runner up, or $300 to win, $100 to runner up. If you're pro stock, the price point is $500 to win, $100 to runner up. These are set by kind of a committee and by convention. So let's take oil or tires. Tires probably a good one as well. There might be 3 or 4 different companies posting for tires. If that's the case, then in order for one of them to say, I want to pay more than $300, you have to get the buy-in from all of the people posting in that category. And there have been situations, factory stock comes to mind, where the payout could be as high as $2,000 to win, $2,500 to win, because all of the people in that category have agreed we can do that. Now, in the case of the wheels, I think the example we were talking about, there's another situation here where if you come into this and you're a new sponsor with a new product line, and as a major sponsor, we asked you in the past to meet a minimum payout to racers. And maybe this is a good time to get into this because I think this has been a point of confusion. So we have the most money you can spend with an HRA in the contingency program is $7,500. That allows you to post for a wheel product or a cylinder head and have the display space and the tickets and the things we talked about. What we do ask, and you've heard people talk about, there's a minimum, and that is a larger number. That was $17,000. Now, what that $17,000 is we expect you to pay the racers over the course of a year for all the winners, all the runner-ups, all the classes, $17,000 or more. And that's how we can make this major sponsor program that only pays NHRA $7,500, but really represents about a $17,000 value work. Because again, not a money maker, but a success maker for NHRA. And if you can pass that money on to the racers, they're going to come back and everybody will become whole. You know, everything that needs to happen will happen. If you can't meet that $17,000, again, in the past, I think this language was incorporated. Some people thought that money went back to NHRA. Some people thought that was a fine that was paid. I believe at the time I've been here, I can find no evidence that any company's ever paid NHRA any money in the contingency program for not meeting a minimum. But it has been instituted as language because we didn't want a manufacturer, whether well-meaning or not, to take advantage of the racers and to become unsustainable within the program. So we would look at, and Chris, I think going forward, if you're a new company with a new product and you have concerns about meeting a $17,000 minimum payout, I'm going to tell you you're a complimentary sponsor this year, or you're a Lucas Oil Divisional Race Series sponsor this year, and there's no minimum. Don't put yourself in that bind. You don't get the display space. You don't get the tickets. Those are available to you. You just have to buy them a la carte, but don't put yourself in that situation where you're going to be worried about succeeding, because we want to see you succeed. We don't want to collect your money. We haven't collected your money. And we certainly don't want racers thinking that any of the money that's intended for them isn't going to them. It's never coming to us. And that's probably something you're going to need to, hear NHRA say more and more. We're not collecting that money. We don't want to collect that money. We want to facilitate that money going to racers every way we can. I think that, again, that idea of clearing up that information, we talked before, NHRA is very good about having internal conversations. All these things are very clear to us. And in some cases, we might be one generation removed from everybody who knew that. And that might have been before the internet. That might have been before cell phones or smartphones. And one person, hears some piece of information that sounds true and maybe some documentation on a form at one point that says X, Y, or Z. And I could see how that could lead to confusion that might not help us accomplish what we're trying to do.
I could tell you that I always, even the last couple of weeks when we were talking about you coming onto the show, I had said that I really thought that there was a lot more that went on behind the scenes than a lot of people will give you guys credit for. Not only did you clear that up, but you also cleared up the money end of it and where it goes and who it comes from and how much it costs to get involved. And, just as an example, how many pairs of hands touch everything and data entry and check everything off before it even gets to the manufacturer so that they can cut the check? The number's a lot higher than I think a lot of people realize.
Well, and again, we want it to be valid, and we do want to provide this service because, as has been pointed out to me, there are some companies that operate or try to operate their own contingency program. Scaling this program is really what makes it possible. If you want to do it yourself, again, we're not going to say you can't, but I wouldn't advise a company to do so because they just won't get the return for their investment. I think this is an efficient program for us to help you with because we're going to do this work anyway. We're going to be verifying and validating other products, but ultimately, we want to see racers get paid. We want to see companies sharing that success.
Yeah, and it's a form of advertising too.
It is. If you think about it, the idea of the win on Sunday, sell on Monday, this is a big part of it. As a kid that didn't grow up in a car family, what brands and products do I want to run? Well, if those people are winning with them, it kind of tells me right off the bat, those racers that are beating me or beating those other guys, they know what they're doing. And if those are the products they're doing it with, they're not doing it by mistake. And I think that's one of the upsides to the contingency program because it requires the decal and the product. It's not a marketing move. It's a legitimate, hard part success. That's got to be a good product because I can't argue with its success on the track.
One of the other things that you had mentioned also was the stickers. Now, basically everybody requires, a certain sticker. It can't just be, a generic, Moroso or whatever sticker. It's got to be, this particular one. And there you go with having your hands on exactly what I'm talking about.
Maybe something along these lines. And
Yes.
K&N's example is going to be a little bit different for 2021. But for the last 4 years, if you were going to claim a K&N air filter, you had to have the product and you had to have this decal on the side of your car. If you were going to claim their oil filter, you had to have the product and you had to have this decal on the side of the car. If you were going to claim both, you had to have both stickers on both sides of the car. And again, K&N racing organization figured it out, had a good distribution. Racers were very good at that. There are times where technical inspector would say, hey, you have this filter sticker on, but you don't have the other one. You claim both, you have both. We can't in good faith pass this claim on. That might be another point to clear up. The way the program is intended, have the decal, have the product. If you have the product and not the decal, you're not participating in NHRA contingency. You might be doing a great thing for the manufacturer, but in order for them to stay whole and have that advertising opportunity, we want this decal. This decal has to be on there in order for us to pass the claim through. If there's a partial claim made and on your sheet you check off you claimed it, and NHRA said you had the product but you didn't have the decal, we're not going to pass that incomplete claim on to the manufacturer. We're going to be the guy that then tells the racer, well, we didn't pass it on because of this. In the future, please have the proper decals on the car, as opposed to force the manufacturer to make that claim. That's, again, us looking to keep the validity of the program alive so that when a manufacturer is involved with us, they know when we say, pay these people, this is the scenario, they can pay those people without having to research and double check and go down the rabbit hole again. But these decals, again, this is I put decals on cars and toolboxes long before I ever knew where these things came from and what their purpose was. The idea that the payment is contingent on having the decal, contingent on having the product. And these decals in 2021 will do a much better job at having a sheet on a website where you can see all the decals, which ones are correct, so that do I have the right one for the oil filter? Is this one okay for the air filter? Is this the right one for the fuel? Is this the one for the tire? And in some cases, is a Chevy bow tie decal enough, or do I have to have a special decal? Does this get me for a crane camshaft, a comp camshaft, a Lunati camshaft? No, this is what you need for comp. And again, we'll do a better job in a COVID-19 world has taught us the best way to get this decal is probably before from the manufacturer. We will have some, but we need to do a good job of making sure that racers can get these decals at the beginning of the season, through the season, put them on the car, before they get to the winner's circle.
Question from from people watching, actually, it's Scott Hall. And the decal needs to be based on the manufacturer's size, maximum of 36 square inches, and not a reduced size.
That's correct. And one of the issues that we've seen, there are some racers that were recreating decals. I think there were times in the past that our expectations of this 36-inch square area showed up in photos, showed up in TV. And the idea of reducing it down the decal, reducing the size, is undermining the intent of the relationship. To run a reduced size decal, when we see that, we're not going to pass that claim through. Again, it's the type of thing. This is a partnership, and racers should be able to uphold their end of the deal and represent the manufacturers the correct way, including running the decal full size.
How about sponsor fatigue?
Sure. So I think that, again, going back to, there are some companies that have successfully gone to this program for decades. Then there are companies that make solid products that racers can buy used, can buy and keep for 20 years. And those product purchases that they continue to be paid on year after year can be tough for some marketing partners to wrap their heads around. Now, there are some partners that can do that and have done it at eternity. There are other companies that will change the products they post for year to year, every couple of years. They might change the categories they post for. I think it's important, like in any marketing plan, if you're only going to target the same customers every year, at some point they'll be satisfied. And if you make a great product, they don't wear out, they're not going to need to buy it again. So what my recommendation is, and we've had a number of conversations with partners, you need to move around what you're posting for, what types of cars, because again, products that don't wear out, and you may not be able to justify continuing to pay and pay and pay and pay. But change the category, change the product, and those racers have shown they'll support the companies that are supporting racers, and they'll make those purchase decisions. If company M is making a product that they've always made and it's great, when a new version of that comes out, what am I going to buy? Well, I've had a great experience already with company M. I'm going to buy it again. I'm going to buy that new version from them.
Now, going into 2021, you had mentioned that you had a meeting with a lot of your contingency sponsors. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So one of the things that we're working on right now, again, is making this experience easier for our partners to be timely. Our commitment has to be to get this data from races to NHRA back to the manufacturers quickly, so that the customer service experience can be good, so racers can get paid promptly, that within an expectation of 6 weeks as opposed to 6 months in a COVID-19 world. That's one of the areas that I've become particularly sensitive to, is timing. Also, we've found that in COVID-19 world, our ability to confirm an after the fact question, that text sheet was incomplete. We're going to do the research here to make sure that it's right, and that we all agree on the findings. This is one of those areas where I want to keep that authenticity of the claims, keep that ability for the manufacturers to have confidence in the program, but make the process as quick as it was in 2019. My hope is that with the lessons learned in 2020 and the ability for us to do this digitally now, as opposed to with the paper trails that we had enjoyed in the past, we should be able to turn these things around quicker and be more a better partner for those manufacturers. And then also talking to the manufacturers about this program and the idea of more complementary programs, more different types of activations for the sponsors that are at races, so that they can take advantage of the opportunities that exist now and safely do those in 2021. This is an organization founded on safety, so in many cases, we want to make sure that we continue to be safe as things get better and different going forward, but make sure that we're giving them the opportunities they need to market the products that they want to sell.
Scotty, go ahead. Do you have anything for him?
Oh, I think you might be on
Your
mute.
mic on.
There we go.
You're muted.
As I'm talking, how long should these racers, once they submit all this, expect, or how long should they wait until they reach right back out to you? Like, say it's been.
Well, 2020 is going to be that tough year. And I would tell them, if they have a question or concern, they should reach out to me right away. And it's the type of thing that it may be something in process. It may be something that I don't have the information. Scott, this is a great question. When you reach out to me right away, and there's a couple of things that you can do to make it more expeditious. In your email, tell me the race, tell me the class, tell me your finishing position, give me your membership number. Because the way our system is built, if I have that information, I can see the claim in our system. If I don't have all those things, I need to start doing research. Now, I'll have all that information here. I can look up your NHRA membership number in our system, but if I have to do it from scratch, it takes longer. So race, finishing position, class, membership number, and send me a question, say, could I check on the status of this claim? In reality, I would tell you it should be within the week, after the race. In 2020, in some cases, it was months after. Right. And that's the painful lesson that we regret, but it is the type of thing that we appreciate the patience. And I had challenging conversations in that started on the phone, but every one of them I've ended up with the grace of the racer has been strong, and we've gotten where we needed to get. We're there with the manufacturers as well. Please provide them your patience as racers this year, because no one was prepared for this scenario, but we all have learned from it and are all going to be in a better place in 2021. But yes, there are outstanding payments. Again, good meaning people that will pay and want to pay, but are just crossing off all of the things in front of it and trying to get that work done. If we have a question that dates back to 2019, again, you have people that we have access to the information, we want to make everything right, and it's just not, there's never enough time in the day to get it all taken care of. But you have our commitment that we will.
Great.
Pete, go ahead.
Basically, the last question that I was going to ask was, if I'm a racer and I'm not happy with the amount of time it's take to getting paid, who do I contact? And you just cleared that right up.
Yeah.
Would you mind if we put your email in our chat section, just so that people have something to reference?
Please do. And so you'll see some emails from me that will come from D, as in David Kennedy at nhra.com. It's also possible to get an email from me that's davidke at nhra.com. Both of those, I don't see any difference between those two emails, but depending on the system and when it's going out or coming in, either one of those works. And there's also contingency at nhra.com that will work. But please do, please put that information. Again, I would say you can call me on my cell phone too, but it's going to be much faster for you to email me, because otherwise I'll talk your ear off. And then go back to work.
I really appreciate the time that you took. And I know you answered a boatload of questions and cleared up a lot of things for a lot of people. So thank you very much for coming on the show and helping us out the way you did. We really appreciate it.
And I can't thank you guys enough for the opportunity, talk with you, talk with your audience. And again, I look forward to a great 2021. All you guys filling out. I want to see all your names on these sheets. And I want to see passing on all your information to manufacturers when you're from the winner's circle.
I can't promise you'll see one from me, but I promise you I'll try my best.
I'll be looking forward to it.
Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks, everybody. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Have a great night.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Very cool. Actually, David, since you're still there, one more quick thing I just wanted to throw out. One of the things that I took away from our conversation, and it was the first thing I told Pete the next day when I talked to him, I'm like, can you believe this was run out of a file cabinet until about a year ago?
Well, and if you think about it, some of these processes, the filing cabinet is good, but it's just when you have to change, when you can't go to the office, and this is the thing too, you go back in the Wayback Machine, we didn't know, right? We were all in Gainesville, and then we didn't know we wouldn't come back to the office. It's the type of thing, in my line of work, you're prepared for various situations, but not coming to the office isn't one of them. So the filing cabinets, it worked real well, and it's fast. Paper is something quick to flip through, but when you got to change it over while you're operating it, change it over from your house, that's tough. So again, we're in a much better situation now, and I hope that the partners and everything goes smoother because of it. At some point we'll be back here in the office every day, and it will work well whether we're here, whether or not. In the future, I think some evolution of this system. In a perfect world, it'll be almost like a UPS tracking number where you'd make a claim and you get an email, claim submitted, processing. Oh, claim's been, verified by NHRA, claim passed on to manufacturer, manufacturer payment, submitted.
Right.
This is the type of thing that making the jump from filing cabinet to that is a big jump, but we took a big step forward closer to that in 2020. And again, I would tell you, if we had that system in place, 2020 might not have been an issue for contingency program. So I need to get us there so that every sportsman racer, think of all the races that they made it to. It was the backbone of 2020. I think that we lost 2 races total, and we probably have better attendance than than we might have otherwise at those races. So again, making this program work for everybody makes sense. And again, I appreciate the time. Any follow-up questions? I was going to say my cell phone number, but it's the type of thing where my cell phone number is probably publicly available. It's been the same since 2003 in every job I've ever had. And again, the only reason not to give it to people is I'll take more of their time than they want to give me. It's faster for them to email me.
I actually just got a couple of questions, if you don't mind.
Shoot.
The first one is, ask David about the master contingency list, and along with, when will the 2021 list be released?
So I'm working. Yeah, no, and in reality, it's getting it done, Dave, and then shared. If you go to NHRAracer.com, on the left-hand side, there's a contingency column. If you go down almost to the bottom, it says contingency. And then I think the wording is contingency sponsors or contingency postings. If you go to that, you should see 2020 races, and you would click on the races individually. And when you click on one of those races, you would get an Excel sheet. Again, that Excel sheet's information is correct, but it's not really user-friendly. The divisional race series, there's a PDF version of that you would click on, and you would see a PDF of all the postings. Those are there right now for 2020. I need to finalize 2021, and Robin Lawrence, if you're watching, get you and everybody else their contracts, get them signed, and get those postings made public. Again, I think that after talking to you guys, making it so that it's obvious per class, per race, who's paying what in a visual sense. Maybe it's even, you show a super stock car, and you say, here are all the people posting at this race, for this car, and do that for all the classes.
Yep.
Very cool. And the great thing is that talking with you about the contingency program is, it's not just for the NHRA guys. It gives everybody a chance of how a program this size and for this amount of time actually functions, and what is involved with the back, the behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah. It is kind of a dizzying array. I mean, if there's 100 companies, I'll call it 75 races, let's say at least a dozen classes with at least 2 finishing positions, sometimes 3, some subset races, in Indy, you end up having so many scenarios that to keep it straight and organized, again, its scale is its friend, but it would be a challenge to start it today. And without a successful program and a trajectory, again, by the racers, by the manufacturers, it might be too daunting to take on. And it's a fun program to work on the back end. I will tell you that. There are things. Do you ever watch Greatest American Hero as a kid?
Oh yeah.
Do you remember when he gets the super suit, and then as he's walking back, the instructions fall out on the ground, and he has to kind of figure it out? There's some days where it feels like that. But you know what? The people that do this program, are able to find the answers. And NHRA is small. It's much smaller than you would think, but you have great meeting people willing to figure those things out so that you can use the superpowers of every program. Again, Chris, you and I talk, there are more people like this at NHRA. It's just that we are so busy doing it that we don't have a lot of time to talk about the efforts. And again, the guys that you see in the mirror, that's what the guys at NHRA look like. That's the things that they think about and care about. Their day jobs in many cases prevent them from having a platform like this to share and talk back and forth, to talk about their office. But again, it's good meeting people, doing hard work, because we know we're going to work hard, and NHRA is one of those places that it rates what we can do for it. It rates more than we can do for it. And again, I appreciate your time this evening. I'm going to go back to doing contracts. I'm going to go back to the contingency tonight. Thanks for letting me cheat the 3-hour time zone jump so I could do this from the office.
Not a problem. Go make sure your kids are doing their homework.
All right. Well, if you need anything, let me know. I'll be here.
All right, David, I'll be in touch.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Pete, now you can file your contingencies from 2017, 2016.
Yeah, it's the problem. I'd have to go back and see when the last time I won. Well, I thought that was a great show.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, it's not just based on them. It's what everybody can use. It gives you ideas. Scotty, I'm sure got some stuff going in your head about your races that you put on. Even Rob Keister with the .90 series, and the event that he's putting on.
Sure.
With the Top Sportsman guys also.
Yep.
I think actually.
I actually like it because when it comes to races like Pete, like my races and stuff, I don't have to get all the sponsors. They don't have to send me all that money. You know what I mean? And me have to handle it. I can just basically say to them, to the racer, you won, send your information to blank, to Straight Line. Yep. Straight Line's going to cut you the check for the $200.
Right.
That's the way it takes it.
It's the amount of work that goes into it, I think, is a lot more than anyone anticipated. And the little amount of money that NHRA actually handles for the whole contingency program, I think is very surprising too, because I've heard a lot of comments of people have to pay NHRA and then NHRA pays, or it's a ridiculous amount of money that they have to pay to get into the program.
Right.
It's basically just, again, if you don't know what goes on behind the scenes, I think once you find out, it's surprising. It looks to me like there's a boatload of work that goes into it for not a lot of money on NHRA's part.
For $7,500 for a year, and then you just plus your contingency. I mean, that's.
Well, I mean, how about the complimentary?
Right. Even that.
Now, I won't get free tickets to the races, and I won't be able to display my product at all 24 national events. But work on their end is exactly the same. For me to raise my hand and say, hey, I want to be a contingency sponsor. This is my sticker that I'm, if people have it on their car and they win, you got to fill out this paperwork and send it to me so I can pay them.
Yep.
And it's of no value to them whatsoever, except for them to help my business grow.
Right. They're not skimming the top. They're not doing any of that. They're not even touching the money. So that's why I was curious how they hold, the sponsors accountable. But like you said, he's willing to work with you because these companies do want to pay. They're just, maybe they're not as organized or something as everybody else, But.
Well, one thing that I think a lot of people need to take into consideration, especially for the disaster that was 2020, when people sign on the dotted line, they give their $7,500 to NHRA. They commit to $17,000 plus in payments, and then March hits, and the financial rug gets pulled out from underneath them. Well, yes, they did commit. Yeah. All the paperwork is already done. All the contingency forms are made. But at the end of the day, if the money's not there because something as crazy as a 100-year pandemic hit, then I don't want to tell people that they have to be more understanding
or more patient.
Well, it's not right for me to tell people how they should be with their money. But at the end of the day, some consideration really should be taken into play. The other issue that you're going to have is companies that are using it for an excuse that don't really have an issue, but they're going to ride the COVID wave of excuses.
Well, that's like ordering parts for us right now. Anytime you order parts, everybody's COVID.
And it's, you have to wonder at the end of the day how much of it has to do with COVID, but it really doesn't matter because we're not going to change the world by complaining on it on this show. It is what it is, and we're coping with it. And I think we're on the downslide. So hopefully, from here on out, it's just going to get easier and better and closer to what we used to think was normal.
There's a whole lot of new that's normal, or a whole lot of normal that's new, depending on how you want to put it.
Well, it looks like in the case of contingencies, a fair amount of good is going to come out of it as far as how they process it, and basically welcome to 2020 as far as ditching the filing cabinet and doing more stuff online. And you got to try and look at the glasses half full, I guess. And
Yep.
it looks like they're making it happen. So that's a good thing.
There was some good that came out of the disaster that was 2020, like you just said a couple minutes ago. And like I said, that was probably one of the first things I said to you when I called you the next day. I'm like, did you know they were doing that out of a file cabinet?
Yep.
Like,
And then
holy
he had
crap.
to get that file cabinet moved to his garage when this whole thing hit,
Yeah.
just so he could do something. Yeah.
It's funny he said that, whether he's working in his garage or in his office.
Right. Yeah.
Well, when him and I first talked, he was literally in his garage and going back and forth, making sure his kids were doing their homework. So,
Yeah.
well, that was very cool. I hope a lot of people learned a lot from it.
Yeah, definitely pin this show up at the top for a while, because even if they couldn't watch it tonight, a lot of good info came from Mr. Kennedy tonight. So I'm sure a lot of
Absolutely.
people
I'm going to
wanna
be
see it.
sharing it around here very shortly.
Excellent.
So joining us next week is going to be Tina Alzuski. She is a former mud racer. She was on the old show a few years ago, and she bought her first Super Comp car, and she went down to Frank Hawley's school and got licensed a few months ago. She's from Connecticut. She's going to be joining us next Monday night to talk about her venture into the world of Super Comp racing. And
Hot 90.
Dot 90. And
Now,
on that,
can you guys explain something to me, being not an NHRA guy, since I'm the other side? Dot 90, and she's going to race, what is it called? What class?
Super Comp.
So is Super Comp like a dial-in, like no throttle stop?
It's exactly what I do, just 2 seconds faster.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when we say dot 90, there's 3 major classes of dot 90.
You race 1090, right?
Correct. So
Okay.
Super Comp is 890.
Yep.
Super Gas is 990, and then what I do, Super Street, is 1090.
What is the one that Rich Preisner runs that's not, it's just a dial-in, it's not?
That's Comp. That's
Okay.
not to be confused with Super Comp.
Okay, that's why I was asking.
That's a weight to cubic inch heads up style racing that you could actually get penalized if you run too far under your index.
Right, okay.
That's a whole nother show.
If any, I always used to joke that if somebody tried to explain how the index system works in comp, it would just give me a headache, and I would crawl under the floor and wait till they were done talking.
Rich was, I believe this was his second season racing comp, and the amount of time that he's explained it to me and what I've learned by watching and helping him out, and I'm definitely interested in it now because I know about it, and I literally still don't think I know 60% of what I should know to follow comp, and it's mind-boggling.
The coolest thing about comp is the variety of cars.
Absolutely.
You have screaming 4-cylinder dragsters going 7 seconds.
Yep.
You have, in like his case and Frank Aragona, you have the Bantams. You have a basically what amounts to a pro mod without a body on it with Santo Volpe's car.
Right.
You have old pro stock cars. You have old pro stock trucks. There's such a variety of cars on there.
Yeah, you've got big crazy alters with blowers sticking out of them.
Yeah.
You could have that almost same exact alter with a 4-cylinder in it. And everything in between.
Right. It is definitely one of, if not the coolest class, but to try and actually explain how the class functions, you're better off to just take this pen and just start poking yourself in the eye.
We might have to we'll have to reach out and see if there's a lot of people want to do a comp show, and I'm sure we could get a couple of comp people on, and might be a pretty fun show, not something to put on the back burner and think about.
Yeah, you want to watch me have a stroke, don't you?
I might have to host that show, Chris.
So like I said, next week, Tina Alzuski is going to join us. We are debating on a couple of other things to talk about. We're going to do a debate show. It's going to be fun. And also coming up on the
I got a good debate we could have. Radio versus slick, wheelie bars or no wheelie bars?
we can have Mike on. Get Michael on with us. You guys can go. Now, there's a lot of
That's on Scott. That's on Tuesday night. Be sure to tune in.
there's a lot of track talk that Pete and I have been going back and forth about that I think is going to be worth hashing out. So, all right, gentlemen, that is how we do that. I know you guys got to go watch Street Outlaws for whatever reason.
Yep.
You know what the best part about running into 20 after 8? I get to fast forward through commercials now. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's the best part. Yep. Start it now. Fast forward.
You are welcome.
Thank you, buddy. Thanks, guys.
All right,
That's
Scott,
fun.
Pete, have a good night.
Great
and
show,
we'll
guys.
see you,
Thanks.
See you next
guys
Monday.
next
All right.
week.
I'll see you in the morning.
You got it.
Talk to y'all soon.
See you, gentlemen.
Bye-bye. Oh, wait a minute. I got to do the sign.
Oh, don't forget that.
Oh, it's upside
It's
down.
upside down, you knucklehead.
There we go. There's plenty of room on there.
You know what I love about that sign? My logo is bigger than Scott's.
This guy right here.
You are the worst.
I am. Gentlemen, have a
It
good
only
night.
took 6 months for the stickers to get here.
Yeah. See you, gentlemen.
Bye,
All
guys.
right, guys. Have a good night. I'll talk to you soon.